Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining for our first practice management event of 2026. My name is Brandon Chapman. I'm the founder of Advisor Flow, and I'll be your host. For those of you that are in the wealth business, you're probably right in the middle of RSP season, so we really appreciate you carving out some time to share with us. Whether you're an advisor currently working in a corporate role or simply a friend of Herman or Tara's, we really appreciate you being here. Independent financial advisory is at its core an entrepreneurial line of work. Yes, you need to understand markets, insurance, financial planning, and tax strategies, but just as important is your ability to handle income volatility, uncertainty, and the emotional responsibility of managing people's life savings. If that part doesn't resonate with you, then yeah, it's going to be a pretty challenging path. If you do enjoy today's conversation, we've hosted several other practice management events like this, covering topics like digital marketing, buying a book of business, and integrating a technology stack. If there's other topics that you feel we should be covering, please feel free to add me on LinkedIn. We're always looking to highlight great people in the industry to help tackle the most pressing industry problems. Over the last year, we also started releasing bite-sized highlights from these events on Spotify and YouTube as podcast episodes. If you find them useful, please follow, listen, and leave a rating. That just helps us reach more thoughtful advisors like you. I strongly believe that innovation is a team sport, and the more we share ideas as a community, the stronger we're all going to become, and the better we'll be able to serve our clients. Today, we're going to be focused on talking about what it really looks like to make the leap from corporate to advisory, from paycheck to payroll. This will be less of a formal presentation and more of a conversation and Q&A with two experienced financial services professionals that have actually made that transition. I'm very fortunate to host these two. I greatly respect both Herman and Tara because they've made that leap, transitioning from the comfort of corporate over to running their own independent practices. Tara and I go back to her corporate days where she led advisor support programs for financial advisory teams across the country. Even back then, she stood out as incredibly thoughtful and grounded. So when she announced her transition in 2021 to launch True Investments and Insurance, it made complete sense to me. Her honest, transparent approach to content and the way she's built her practice is a real testament to the quality of person she is and the professional. So thanks for being with us today, Tara. I've known Herman for about 7 years, dating back to when he joined and eventually chaired the Abacus Tech and Innovation Committee. He's deeply passionate about the financial planning profession, very open-minded about what success can look like, and is genuinely generous with his time and perspective. He's also sometimes a Canucks fan and a proud father of two. Herman recently launched Crimson Financial, where he serves professionals and business owner clients across Ontario. I'm very fortunate to count both Tara and Herman as friends, and I look forward to learning alongside you today with them. So first off, let's start off with the question of why. Like, why did you consider leaving your corporate or support role? And Tara, let's start with you.
Thanks, Brendan. Thanks for having me. And I'm just so grateful to be here. And with Herman, we also know each other from our past lives. And I don't know if I've ever told you this, Brandon, but I started as an advisor back in my 20s. So I was a young 20 something. It was my first, foray into the workforce. And so I had a blip of time as an advisor back in the day. Now, of course, the world was very different back then. And for me, it just wasn't the right fit at that point in my life. So I went into the corporate side. Fast forward over the years, there was always this sort of thought in the back of my mind that if I could do it again in my own way, I would just love it. Like it would be the most amazing thing. And I think that was, I loved the business so much. I loved what advisors, the role they played in a person's or a client's life. And so it always stuck with me. So that little glimpse that I had way back when just carried with me over the years. Every time I would be out at an advisor function, the energy, hearing about their day, it just really excited me. So I had that sort of in the back of my mind, and eventually that got louder and louder for me. and something that I kind of tried to push away at times because I was enjoying my corporate career. I was doing really great things. I was enjoying the teams that I was working with. And so for me, it was that, do I listen to this and where's it coming from? And is it just like this idea or is it actually real? Then the nudge just got so loud that I listened and I just took the leap and yeah, I'm so happy I did.
I love that. I actually didn't know you started as an advisor, but that makes a ton of sense. You kind of got a little taste and then realized down the road that you actually really did enjoy that feeling. But I imagine it still took some guts in order to do that. Now, Herman's made this jump a little more recently. So Herman, perhaps you could share the why behind your transition as well.
First of all, Brandon, thank you so much for this opportunity. Just an absolute honor and pleasure to be with both of you today and many of our friends on the call in attendance. I got my first taste of commission sales way back in 1999 when I got hired to sell computers and electronics at Future Shop. So for those that are old enough on the call, that grew up in the late 80s and 90s in BC, you would know that name. Yeah, I got my start there. And it was really exciting to, have somebody walk in with a need in mind and get trained to have them walk out with five things. As funny as that sounds, it really paved the way for my eventual entry into financial services, where many people have many needs. But most of the time they're not aware of those things. And I have to give credit to all the different organizations that I did spend some time with. First was HSBC, then it was RBC, and then for the last 15 years, London Life slash Canada Life, where I learned the skills and the techniques to, find more about people and then come up with really good solutions and ultimately help people implement those solutions. So yeah, I spent the last 15 with Canada Life, and I've lost count of how many people I've met over the years that I've either recruited or tried to recruit or have been aligned to and worked with. And I took something out of every single interaction. And also, the lifestyle that many of the more successful advisors led, and the community work that a lot of them did. As I share this with everybody on the call today, like I'm thinking of all these different names and faces in my head right now of all those professionals, and has really resonated with me. Yeah, there came to a point which I'll share, I guess, later on in our discussion today. Finally made me make that big decision to jump in with both feet.
Both of you got to have visibility in a ton of different advisor practices in your role. So you talked a little bit about that, Herman, but maybe you could explain a little bit about what you took away from your support role and how that's perhaps helped you launch into this professional advisory, independent advisory business in a better spot.
Yeah, sure, Brendan. Yeah, just automatically a couple of advisors stand out in my head right now. First of all, like just a genuine passion of helping people. So I did work with a lot of advisors that truly embodied that. So that's really important. Another one would be, I've had the fortune of working with some advisors that really focused on planning. Them early on in my career with Canada Life, my last employer. So that really, really resonated with me. Their ability to problem solve and problem solve quickly for people. And this is way easier said than done, but actually getting people to take action. We're in this world now where we are bombarded with information. We're bombarded with strategies. We're bombarded with experts are saying this, that, and the other. And now with AI and all the social media, nobody even knows what is fact or fiction anymore. So 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, when I worked with all these advisors, a lot of them took the time to learn more about different topics, different solutions. We're able to package that efficiently and get people to take action. Those are some examples I can share, right off the top of my head.
And Tara, how about you? Like what skills would you say came to help you and which perhaps held you back?
Well, along the line with what Herman said about problem solving, getting people to take action, like those skills I used every day in the corporate world. We're continually problem solving. We're trying to look ahead. We're trying to think about what's happening. And I think, and then we're also trying to get quick action, and move things forward because that's how, improvements are made. And so I think my work in that regard, along with relationship building and communication, was so critical as you moved along on the corporate side. The more, again, relationships you were building, we were a team trying to get things done. And so you really had to get everyone on board to move a ship forward, to move an idea forward all the way to execution. And so I think those skills come into play in the advisory world, and in my everyday now, just as much. And I think the other piece was general leadership. I find that our role as financial planners is guiding and leading. And it's being that calm voice. It's being that, here are some ideas. It's kind of guiding them along, but having that leadership presence as you are working with people. And so I think those things very much translated going back to my prior, like when I was in my 20s as an advisor to now. And maybe it's been a transition in the industry, just that planning focus has really amplified, which is so much more my jam, if you want to call it that. And so I think that whole idea of really getting deep on, not just one thing, but really looking at the course of someone's seasons of life and how are we planning and moving through those was such a great fit for me now.
I don't know. I love you do these money jams, and you share a ton of content online. I'd encourage anyone who's starting to build their social strategy to check out Tara because she really speaks from the heart, which our industry has a habit of being sort of corporate and lacking personality. Tara's kind of the opposite of that. So I think there's a lot to learn for many advisors on the call. And Herman, you've just got started on this sort of content journey and having less, I'll call them like corporate shackles holding you back from being yourself online. So how has that transition been for you?
Before I answer that, Brent, I want to add one more point to what Tara said and also give some credit to corporate and my corporate experience is that I learned a lot about systems and processes. And if there's one thing that has really helped me in I think I'm in week 9 right now with a smooth launch is that foundation of helping learning systems, different systems and processes, and helping other advisors and leaders implement systems and processes. It's just a much quicker way to demonstrate professionalism with new people that I meet, and other professionals that I meet that I'm looking to collaborate with and I'm collaborating with. So I do have to give credit to corporate as well for helping me with that.
Yeah, there is obviously a lot of rules you need to follow when you're working corporate. You can't necessarily be yourself online as an example. So now that you've launched Crimson and you're able to be more yourself, how has that been for you, the transition from not being able to engage much online to being able to kind of do what you want?
It's absolute freedom. It's absolute freedom. And I feel extremely free to be able to really share and showcase my real personality to the world has been such a fun experience. I've worked with a lot of advisors, some of them may be on the call today, that used to joke with me that I was always so corporate. I tried my best to stay within those boundaries and represent the different brands that I was getting paid to represent. But now that I'm obviously showcasing brand I've developed and to the marketplace. I get to be more creative. I get to be a little bit more witty, and really push that boundary a little bit more. And no, it's been a lot of fun. It's been resonating with a lot of folks. I've got some pretty good feedback from other professionals that I'm working with. I had sent out a market outlook email about a week ago. On a Saturday morning right after Trump threatened Canada. So it was something I was supposed to do on a Friday. Now, if it was old corporate me, I could have waited till Monday to send that out. But I didn't have time because I had a really busy week. So I ended up started drafting this market outlook email on a Saturday morning. And when I was drafting, I was just checking the news for fun, chatting with some of my friends that also wake up early on a Saturday morning. And then I saw that Trump was threatening Canada again. This time, 100% tariffs. So I included that in the email, sent it out literally like an hour and a half later. So I didn't have to wait until I was going to clock in on a Monday at 8:30 or 9 and then do other stuff, help maybe put out some fires via email and then send it out before lunch on Monday. I sent it out Saturday morning, and I had two clients, and I had a center of influence that basically responded right away. Said, "Wow, that was really good. Like that was really helpful, really timely." Um, and I didn't have to run that by anybody. Like I even included an image of Trump and Carney in a boxing ring about to fight each other. That was thanks to AI, which we'll touch on later on today. But I was able to put that into this email sending out to all my clients and some of my centers of influence so they can spread the word. And I was able to do that and make those kind of decisions literally within like an hour and a half.
Says a lot to the opportunity of independent advice right now, because if you're at a bank, a credit union, or you work in corporate setting, you do have to run through a fair number of checks and balances. And with media moving as quickly as it is, if you're not getting those communications out quickly, you've lost the opportunity and you've sort of missed the boat. Now, you both have shared sort of anecdotal evidence of like your experience you've learned from other advisors. Are there any specific stories you can share or things that you learned from specific advisory teams that you'd be comfortable sharing, or any shout outs that you want to provide?
I think for me, it was over the years being inspired by so many different advisors that I saw how they were running their practice. And for me, their level of care for clients to me, it just mattered so much. And I knew when I launched my practice that I would have that similar care, that really soulful approach to working with people through their financial planning. And yeah, so I think it helped to build my confidence that this was the right fit for me as well, is seeing the different advisor practices. Because what I love about this industry is the fact that we're all different. We all have different personalities, we all have different styles, we all have different approaches, and I actually love that. But I think there are some core things that remain the same, and client care for me was top.
Brandon, did you want us to name drop some folks? Is that what you're asking?
If you'd like to, I think it's not bad, because at the end of the day, the best way, like I'll speak like Sean Todd as an advisor. I've been
Yeah.
following his
Mhm.
content a lot. His newsletter is probably one of the best newsletters I've seen in the industry. The only way we get better is by collaborating. Like Griffin Advantage, I've seen them post a ton of content that's super relevant for advisors. Financial Horizons, they've been posting advisor content like videos. So there's a lot of good stuff happening in the industry. So as much as we're highlighting each of your successes, we need to highlight each other. That's the way we all get better, right? So
Yeah,
Mhm.
hey, Brandon, I'll be more than happy to name drop some folks and just quickly share some of the reasons why. They may or may not ever listen to this or watch this, but hey, this is I'm putting on record. So first of all, I'll mention this advisor that I met in the first week when I joined London Life. That's Lee Browning up in Newmarket. From his planning process really resonated with me. In fact, I kept a piece of paper. He doodled and drew on a piece of paper his financial planning process. It was a quick little diagram. I kept it, and I actually told him about a year ago. I'm like, I kept that, and that really helped me in the last 15 years. Another advisor that stands out would be Christopher Dooney. Some of you may know that name on the call. He's the vice chair of FP Canada. I learned from him planning. I learned from him marketing himself using social media, which he did it well before anybody else did. Another advisor out in Ajax is Jeff Stewart of We Listen Financial. In terms of website, process, and systems, he's levels ahead of most advisors. Another advisor I want to mention, just because I have such a close relationship with him, is Sean Prizeman up in Markham. Organization, delegation, learned a ton from him. Another gentleman up in Aurora, Scott Harris, has built an absolute empire up there with some close business partners and associates, and he's definitely ahead of the curve as well.
good roster. I like it. What surprised you both about the learning curve? So you sort of were brought up in a particular way, taught how advisors should operate their businesses, but then you saw a ton of practices in terms of how they were operating. When you made the transition, what were the things that perhaps were challenging for you, and things that you've since figured out?
I think for me, the shift to entrepreneurship mindset, like a real entrepreneur mindset, coming from the corporate world where, it is a little bit different, and you are representing a big, broad brand. And I know, Herman, you talked a little bit about brand. And so when you make this shift, your brand is you, which can be scary. It's like, oh my gosh, you're out there for all to see. You're not representing, a big brand where you're kind of like hiding in behind it a little bit. Like, yes, of course, you're an individual, but you're out there for everyone to see, and that's a scary place, or at least it was a scary place for me because it just felt vulnerable, right? You're kind of putting yourself out there. I think that general shift into not only the entrepreneur mindset, like oh my gosh, I'm running a business. You're not just running like a corporate budget that you're running everything. The profit is yours. If you don't make any, you don't make any. And so really transitioning into that CEO mindset, because yes, we obviously are focusing on building our advisory practice, but we also have to run the business. And so for me, that was a big shift and certainly was something that I knew and had in my mind, but there's no guidebook or rule book. Like here's how you do it. And so you're kind of discovering that, which is partly self-discovery and then partly doing discovery, like doing things and learning along the way, because there isn't sort of a rule book for that. But I think that for me was also the most refreshing part. Like I'm the decision maker. So if I'm making a tech decision as an example, I'm doing my due diligence, weighing it. Here's the cost. Let's make the decision. Let's go for it. I think that was also the biggest shift for me, was like instant decision. Where in my past life, there were processes to get to a decision. And so we followed those processes to get to a decision. Then all of a sudden I'm an entrepreneur and I'm like, no, I need to, like, I make that now. And I think as an entrepreneur, you don't have time to wait. You don't have time to like weigh this, that, and the other thing. You're like, it's costing me money to think about it. So like, let's make the decision and go. Stepping into that and embodying that was big.
Becoming the chief everything officer, CEO. Yeah,
Well, that's the other thing. You don't have the people. Like back in the day, I've got a comms team, a marketing team. They're doing social media. I've got my finance team. So you had resources just at your disposal. And then you're like, oh my gosh, where's my social media person? And where's my finance person? Who's doing my books? Oh, I'm doing my book. Like, oh, that's awesome. So it's just, yeah, it's definitely a major shift. But like I said, so many refreshing parts.
yeah. And I know we do have a few folks on the call that do help advisors in this particular things if you need support. So like Angelina Hung on the marketing side, check out Financial Tech Tools. I know I've seen Natalie Hales for kind of niche marketing. Uh, these type of support businesses really can help advisors as you grow, and you can start to offload certain pieces of the business so you don't have to do everything yourself. But originally, when you get started, it is all on you, right, Herman?
Oh yeah. But to answer your question, Brandon, this last question, I gotta admit that I feel like I'm the luckiest advisor, luckiest planner, luckiest guy around. The timing of my decision with the advent of AI, the advent of better, more mature fintech, which we'll touch on very soon, and just all the advisors and planners I worked with in the last 15 years, like I learned so much from them. Those that work closely with me, they'll know who they are. Like I said, hopefully they'll see or hear this, but thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping me beta test a bunch of my strategies and techniques in preparation of my own launch. So, if I haven't said thank you to you already, like here's me on record doing it again. But yeah, no, the challenges have been quite minimum so far, just because I've been preparing this for quite some time, and with technology and internet, etc., I've been able to delegate a lot of tasks to these different tools that exist out there now, which we'll share in a moment. Help my day to day be a lot easier and smoother, and get more done. And really maximize, my time.
And the timing on that topic makes sense for a transition. So we're going to review kind of a graphic of all the tools that each of you are using in your respective practices. And the benefit of starting from scratch is you can really look out there and see, okay, which tools are best in class and can help support. But when you think about, client discovery, risk profiling, insurance workflow, let's have each of you kind of just walk us through the client journey of the tools you're using and why. Tara, why don't you kick it off, and then we'll pass it over to Herman.
So I think when I was looking at my practice and really trying to lay out my tech stack or the things that I wanted to incorporate, I had some overarching themes. And so for me, it really started with because I launched in COVID. So that was another thing. Really, was that a smart thing? I don't know. But anyway, I launched in the midst of COVID. So we're not actually meeting with people. How do people even know I'm in this business? So I really did have to start with a presence out there in some way. And so that was a presence. I did work with a brand consultant. I did work to get a website going and some general, I worked through what my voice was going to be out there, which I wanted to be very authentic. And so I knew I had to do something on that front, not only because of the circumstances we were in, but also to ensure people kind of got my vibe before meeting, because I think people check you out and they want to kind of see what's happening. And I really wanted that to feel authentic and feel like me. And so that's where I did spend that time up front, getting all of those things working really nicely. But I think then as you approach and start again, then onboarding and working with clients, for me, it was how could I create as seamless a client experience as I could? And it's been janky. Like it's been janky because as we know, things don't all API flow together. So you're kind of trying to put the best pieces you possibly can together and create a flow that feels good to a client. I think that, of course, started with Advisor Flow. I was an early adopter of Advisor Flow, like right away out of the gate. It was one of the tools I invested in because prior to that, I was like, really? Like we have to collect all these things in a email? Like I was just, some things just, okay, I couldn't believe it. And so I was like, there has to be a better way. And then here comes Brandon. But I think for that reason, how you kick off a relationship with a client and what their experience is from the very beginning was so important to me. And that was, again, why I invested right away into Advisor Flow. And, obviously the integration with my CRM of Advisor Flow just, again, helps create that seamless internal from the client into everything that we need on the back end. I would say the other tools that I've selected or that I've chosen, my planning software being Conquest, and then my illustration, whether that be for insurance or investments with LDA and Cap Intel. Again, those are independent tools. My hope is that someday there's some sort of level of connection between some of those tools. But I would say that's kind of my front end, client experience piece. And yeah, I'm quite happy with those tools and how they're working so far.
Tools evolve as your practice evolves too, right? And so picking the softwares that are sort of purpose built for advisors makes a big difference. You might see like a generic piece of software that says it works best with every type of business. And then when you get into the weeds, you're like, oh, this actually doesn't do exactly what I need. And then the level of customization, if that's available, becomes a challenge. So thank you for the early support, Tara.
That was a good point, Brandon, is I think the other piece that was like an overarching were, if it was developed, created for advisors, that was a bonus to me because they already understood our world. They understood what we needed. And so that was sort of an important piece when I was doing some of that due diligence was, is this for advisors or is this a software that could be customized, could be used for advisors? So when given the choice to pick between, those would be the ones that I would be going with.
Yeah, it makes sense. And that's sort of how I think about when I partner with different companies as well, is are these companies going to be around in 2 to 5 years? Because we're going to be in business for decades. And so the decisions we make is which problem does it solve today and which problem will it evolve to solve in the future? And Herman, you've been probably one of the most tapped in tech guys in Canada, reviewing so many different tech tools with the tech committee, and then choosing your set for your own practice. So maybe walk us through a bit of how you made those decisions and how things have started for you.
For sure, Brandon. And I was actually waiting for this slide to show up before I gave you a proper shout out. Hopefully I'll make you blush a little. But you've definitely inspired me as an advisor and planner. and you leading the charge in fintech in Canada from your own software advisor flow, which I'll touch on in a second, leading the tech committee at Abacus before we met, and you got me to do the same thing. So, yeah, thank you for that, Brandon, and you've definitely been an inspiration. Okay, when it comes to my tech stack, we'll start from the left to right. So, for those that are considering, getting a website created or refreshing your website, I think Angelina's on the call, so she's a dear friend. Angelina's super experienced professional in that space. But if you're on a bit of a shoestring budget, comfortable with using new technology, Squarespace is definitely a great option. That's why I ended up choosing. And I was quite surprised how quickly I was able to produce a pretty good looking website with some pretty basic content. Yeah, so if anybody on the call wants to check out a Squarespace product, my website was built using Squarespace. I've also decided to use Microsoft 365 just because I've been using Microsoft 365 for so long. I'm also a Google user in my personal life, but for business, I decided to stick with Microsoft. The booking system, which has worked out really well. I was originally going to use Calendly, which has been around for a very long time, but I figured if there's one less tool I don't have to pay for, and if it's already part of my subscription, why not, right? Which leads me to Advisor Flow. So just like Tara, I was a very early adopter when I caught wind of Advisor Flow and meeting Brandon many years ago, and it's come a long way. It's come a long way, and it is the first piece of tech that I introduce to a prospect or a client, with the exception of Microsoft Teams or Zoom. But the ability to customize my onboarding survey or surveys, I send people a bunch of them, has allowed me to become much more efficient. And because people live such busy lives now, and sometimes there's conflicting schedules, especially when kids are in the mix, and sports and things like that. People can respond to my surveys and complete them on their own time. So I send it out. They get it done whenever they get it done. If they don't get it done, it has an auto reminder. If that doesn't work, I'll remind them myself. Mix up the different methods of communication, whether it's email, text, WhatsApp, rotate, rinse, repeat, etc. But eventually people do complete them. And from there, it flows into my CRM, which is a newer one for those that don't know. Layla has been around for a couple years, but definitely making a lot of noise in the last year and a half, I would say. I'm very happy that AdvisorFlow and Layla were able to join forces. So a lot of the information I do collect flows into my CRM. From there, I do a bunch of analytical work. On the investment side, I use CapIntel for my KYP process. And then for pure analysis, I use a software called WealthScope. Thought I'd bring a little attention to that. It's a real lesser known company. CapIntel is the 800-pound gorilla now in the industry. And WealthScope is a local Toronto-based software built by a York University professor and her team. It allows me to analyze somebody's investment statements. In fact, you could just upload them and they'll basically scan and scrape all the data and input everything for you. And then actually can help a planner or advisor produce a report card for the client. And then, of course, there's LDA for insurance analysis and different types of solutions that exist out there. And then for planning, I actually use Conquest and Planworth. I do use Planworth more because I'm focusing more on corporate cases, and the functionality there is just a little ahead. And the rest of the stack, I've been trying out Focal. I was using Fathom like Terra for the last year plus. I've been testing out Focal. They just launched a Canadian server. Not that that's a legal thing or not. It doesn't have it doesn't have to be on a Canadian server, the data, in terms of satisfying Canadian laws. But Focal is very focused on the financial services industry. They just set up the Canadian server, like I said, and a lot of the Canadian acronyms they've programmed the system with them already. So I've been using it for about three weeks now, and it's going really well. And it also includes behavioral finance insights in the coaching that you get in the report after the meeting. So you can look back at your last meeting. If you spoke too much, they'll tell you didn't listen enough, cutting people off, whatever. There's a lot of insights in that, so that's pretty cool. So I encourage everybody to check that out. For cloud storage, I use a mix of OneDrive. Layla as well has a file storage system as well as AdvisorFlow. And lastly, with AI, I think we'll touch on this a little bit later as well, but So I want to give a shout out to Gemini Pro and Perplexity Pro. Those are my two favorites. Never spent too much time on ChatGPT, even though that's the OG of AI tools. On the call, you want to save some time on which AI to choose. If you're just starting out, I would go with Gemini for kind of everyday usage and to create images as well. Perplexity for deep research and planning, etc.
And it's clear how much thought's gone into this, right? Like both of these advisors are really thinking about the client experience and then thinking about operations. How do you actually make your business run efficiently? I do see we've had a couple questions come in that are relevant, so let's jump into those. Tina, good to hear from you. Does your LDA integrate with Layla, Equisoft, CRM?
I'll maybe jump in. So it doesn't integrate into my CRM, but what I understand, the ability for your MGA to dump data into LDA. So that's what I'm waiting for, because there is an ability to sort of upload information into like the existing policy data, enforced policy data into LDA, but that's like a manual process right now that LDA helps us with. My understanding is a feed is being worked on so that will then be in there. And then that'll generate the reminders and other information, which I think is going to be really powerful once that's happening. And yeah, I think what would be amazing is if maybe I'm putting Brandon on the spot, but the information that we capture in advisor flow from a client, just client data, client shell, if that were to populate into LDA, so that's already there and we don't have to add a contact in LDA, that might be beautiful. Anyway.
We'll send a note to Charlie after this. We have an API. Layla did a great job with it. There's always room for improvement with integration partners, but yeah, we'll hit up Charlie, and there's a few of us on the call using the software. I think we're just getting going on LDA as well within our practice. So, but yeah, great question, Tina. In general, insurance companies have been very protective of client data, and that's made it difficult for advisors to get information in the right place to improve the client experience and sort of our regular operational workflow. At the end of the day, at Advisor Flow, we're just focused on what we can control, which is the right data being gathered at the right time, and then ideally integrating with as many softwares as are willing in order to enhance the advisor experience and the client experience. So, great question, Tina. Another question here come in. How much budget do you allocate towards as a fixed cost for your tech stack?
Well, I'm on monthly subscriptions in all of them. I've also made a lot of friends in the industry, so a lot of them I'm not paying full price. So why am I sharing that with you guys? I mean, like I said, there's a lot of friends on this call too. So, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. And if you want me to put a good word in with a particular vendor to help you get the same deal or similar deal, I'll be more than happy to do that. Part of the intention of sharing this with everybody today is also sharing my own tech stack is that I try to use Canadian fintech as much as possible. For those that have done research down south, there's a lot of really cool tech that's coming out of the south of the border that may not be, usable in our Canadian market up here, right? So, but most of the ones that I have listed are Canadian or focused on the Canadian market or using a Canadian server. Which is obviously better than having data stored in an American server. It does add up once you're using all these different tools on a regular basis, but each one has its very strong use case, and each one right now I can't live without. So you be the judge. I remember reading many years ago when it comes to the average advisor. If you want to build your practice, you need to allocate X towards marketing, you have to allocate X towards technology. I would argue focus on the technology more than the marketing. No offense to the marketers on the call, my marketing friends on the call. The technology will help you provide that better digital experience, and everybody is used to a digital experience now, right? Whether it's Amazon, Skip the Dishes, Uber Eats, Uber, all the major banks, you name it, right? Like everybody's used to everything at their fingertips and getting answers and getting things delivered and getting things done at their fingertips. If you can keep up with that, or at least sort of emulate a chunk of that, so that this is not sticking out like a sore thumb in somebody's everyday life, I think it's gonna at least help you keep pace with what's happening out there.
I was going to say as well, Herman, I might disagree a little bit on the on the forget marketing and branding. For me, that was a piece that I chose to make that investment. And I think it supported me, in starting this whole business up. But that was more of like that piece. I don't have a social media manager or anything like that. That piece was a one-time cost, right? So I think the other piece is what is your cost to get into the business? I think again, like any entrepreneur, we're investing in a business. And so I think don't go into it thinking there isn't going to be a cost. Really sitting down, I had sort of planned out, here's what I think it's going to cost for me to launch this thing and get it started. So what are those upfront costs? And quite frankly, like you're paying for those. What you're paying for those out of savings. You're paying for those out of. So what investment as an entrepreneur are you going to make before you've even got your first client? So for me, I didn't come into this with any clients. So I put an investment into my business before I was making money. And so I mean, that's a risk of an entrepreneur. Like you're believing in what you're doing and what you're building, and so really seeing that as an investment for the longer term was key for me as as a startup. And then I did just look at my 2025 tech costs just to kind of give you a ballpark. So for me, again, I'm not doing multi-staff, multi-team, but for my tech stack, it's about 10 grand. 10 grand for the year. So, if you've got additional team members and so on, and you're doing memberships per team, that's gonna increase. But generally speaking, to get what I've got now is about that in investment. And I do have some of those duplicates, like Herman was saying. I have Calendly when I have Office 365 when I could use the booking there. I have Zoom when I could probably use Teams, but it's just more of a preference for me. And so that's why I choose to invest there.
Couple threads to pull on there. First of all, a couple things that Herman and Tara brought up. Not every advisory team needs every piece of software. So depending on if you're an insurance focused firm, you probably need more LDA. If you're a planning focused firm, you need a planning software. If you don't have a lot of clients, you might not need an onboarding software right away until you start that sort of steady pipeline. As well, if you do end up working with a tech provider early days, you might get a better price than later days because you're providing a lot of that insight and support to help them build out their product. So it really depends on your priorities as a business owner. Another thing I wanted to kind of touch on with both Tara and Herman is the demographics of our industry. So I think this is why a lot of the investment dealers and MGAs haven't invested a ton into the digital experience, because they're more profitable advisors don't care about those things necessarily. They don't care, but they're not top priority. So since you've been able to build out your tech stack and to start to speak with some of those more experienced advisors, how do you blend sort of the way things were done with those types of advisors and their clients, if you start working with those firms, with sort of the younger clients and the digital first experience they might be looking for?
Pretty much a continuation of what I just said with my previous answer, or the answer I just gave, that literally everybody's getting used to using technology now. So a lot of the technology that we're sharing today is quite mature already and fully functional and pretty easy to use. And I would challenge anybody on the call that hasn't really used a lot of the technology that we shared today to give it a shot. And you'll be surprised how easy it is to use, and you'll be surprised how quickly your clients will adapt to it. I still remember the old days of doing, fact find meetings and helping my new advisors do fact find discovery meetings, literally using pen and paper and then typing it up afterwards. Like, I still remember those days. And now I basically send an email to a prospective client and their partner, and sometimes they get it back to me within a couple of days. Sometimes it takes 2 weeks, but it's also very psychological, but also positively impactful at the same time, because now they've got skin in the game. You're literally assigning homework to them that they have to complete if they want to move forward. So if they take the time to do it, they're going to want to see what comes out of it. So you really want to create that partnership dynamic between you and the prospective client. I know it sounds a little crazy, but it does work. And Advisor Flow enables that, and the other technologies that we mentioned. So my response to your question, Brian, is just I would challenge the older advisors that haven't really used much technology. Like, challenge yourself. If not, delegate that to one of your staff, and that way they can just focus on the virtual video call meeting or in-person meeting, and then delegate the rest, right? But there's definitely serious ROI to be had with all these tools that we've shared.
And I've bought a book of business from a gentleman who wasn't a very big tech guy. Now that we've implemented tech with a lot of those clients, while still respecting a lot of the processes and the annual meetings and the ways that he operated those meetings, we've seen a huge lift in efficiency gain across the firm. Like we can manage more assets for clients. We can service more clients while still, I think, probably enhancing the experience along the way because things don't get missed if you've got the right tech integrated into your regular process. So, I know both of you have, I would say, decades of growth ahead of you, and so I'm really curious to see how you grow in terms of the organic plus potentially acquisition. As I do think there's a lot of advisors that are going to be transitioning out, and it's important for us, sort of more modern advisors, to respect how things were done while still modernizing and improving the experience for clients. Now, we've got a couple more questions, but I do want to run through a few more of these graphics because both Herman and Tara shared a few things on how they're operating, and I thought it'd be really relevant for the group to take a look. So, Herman, do you maybe want to speak a little bit about these forms you've built out and how this is integrated into your process? I know you touched a little bit on it for the
Yeah,
last.
for sure. Everything you guys are seeing on screen are custom forms I've created using Advisor Flow. So the one on the top left is as soon as somebody expresses interest in meeting me for a free consultation meeting, I send them that survey, and then basically they grade themselves on where they stand on different areas of their financial life. So that's in the top left corner. In the top right corner is a snippet of my corporate fact finder. It's actually an old fact finder a document that I've had many years ago. I uploaded it to AdvisorFlow with their new feature called Form Genie, which does use AI, and then I customize some of the questions and answers. The one in the middle is another newer one I've been using. So in my data collection process, I also want to know the general health of the new prospects slash clients and their family history. So these are things you don't want to be, surprised by, way down the planning road. So if I can find that out earlier and they basically self-report to me, that makes me more efficient and be able to provide personalized insurance solutions much sooner. And then in the bottom left corner, that's part of the corporate fact finder as well. And in the bottom right corner, it just shows that's Layla's Outlook email integration. So every time I send a meeting recap to a client, which I do after every meeting, it automatically saves inside my CRM. So I'm not double typing anything or copying, pasting, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, just killing a lot of different birds with a few stones here, and has just you know created huge efficiency gains.
If I can jump on to your process, Herman, the other thing that's really great about once you've created a survey, I also have templated emails that I have for different stages. And you can take the advisor flow link to the survey and embed that into a templated email. So then when during your process, I have some templated workflows in Calendly. So a pre-email before a financial wellness check-in with a link to an advisor flow survey. And so that goes out 2 weeks in advance. The survey link is there. They go in and complete the survey. So it's like you build the survey, but then if you can work it into another process or workflow to simplify it, yeah, super amazing.
And we're going to continue to bolster a lot of the functionality in the product and make workflows easier. It's all about how do we make things customizable enough, but still scalable so that data will feed into the right places and you're not getting sort of siloed information stuck in software. That's, I think, the large opportunity in our industry. And there's been some feedback on, should we add more AI in our business? So we'll touch on that question in just a moment. But first, this is a little taste of how Tara is presenting true investments and insurance. And I think the title of the business really aligns well with how she operates. But you can see that how she's thinking about content and how that's helped her in her business.
Thank you. I think when I think about content, I really am focused on content for my clients, for potential clients. It never has been to create something that's going to go viral or be an influencer. It really is to share tidbits of knowledge, but also to share things about me and what I'm doing. I practice what I teach. And so sharing what I'm doing in my personal life sort of not only gives people a little bit more about me, but also shows them, okay, so when she's talking about this, she's not just saying everybody do it, she's doing it. This little one up in the top corner where it's a picture of it, looks like a little cottage, is this past year the location that we did our annual money jam. So it's a weekend away, and my husband and I, well, we look at the year ahead, think about our goals, but also talk about our money and where do we want our money to flow? What are our priorities for the year? Like, this is something we've been doing annually, the first weekend in January, for a number of years. And we love to pick a cute spot that's going to be fun and relaxing and calming. And so that was a little reel that I did just to showcase that.
I think a lot of us can take away from this that if you can showcase yourself and be you, you'll attract the right types of people. And a lot of people think about, oh, I need to go viral on social media and I need to get hundreds of thousands of followers. But in reality, it's we really only need to have a great business, maybe 100 families as clients. If they're the right people, that's going to be a very profitable business. You don't need to have hundreds of thousands. It's more about the quality of the relationships, the quality of the people you're working with, and that ultimately leads you to build a quality business. So thanks for leading the way on that, Tara. And I'm looking forward, Herman, to seeing how you can build out your content strategy over the years ahead. And we'll be sure to support and amplify as much as we can on our side. So okay, we've got a few more questions here. We're running out of time, unfortunately, so we're going to have to skip some of these, but I will try to answer some of them with Tara and Herman's perspective in the follow-up email that we'll be sending to everyone. Jump into a little bit about what's to come with Advisor Flow, and for those of you that are using the product, we recently rolled out the file upload feature. So now you can upload files directly to your clients within the Advisor Flow product. As well, clients can upload files outside of forms. Previously, it was only within forms. Now they can upload forms within what's called the My Drive in the product, and you'll get an email notification if a client uploads a file. So this was a requested feature by a number of clients, and so therefore we've added this product, or added this feature to the product. We welcome your feedback on this. We'll continue to bolster the how the feature works, and there's always going to be ways we can enhance. I encourage folks on the call to follow them on social media. I know they're both active and happy to share. So here's some of their handles. Tara, Herman, any final words before we wrap today?
Just thank you. And if anyone is out there and they're feeling a nudge to jump in and launch their own practice, go for it. Don't wait.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Thanks for the Advisor Flow team. Thanks for today. If anybody wants to connect on anything that we discussed today, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, IG, etc., email, my website, etc. Look forward to connecting, and yeah, let's have a great 2026.
Beautiful. Yeah, we're really lucky to be in this business. There's so much opportunity, and we've got a strong community of people. So thanks everyone for joining today, sharing your thoughtful questions. And if there's any other events you want us to host this year, just hit me up on LinkedIn. We're starting to think about what other topics we want to bring on. Thanks a lot, Herman. Thanks, Tara. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, everybody.